How could a village peasant become a priest, merchant, or even a knight? Is it true that after the Black Death peasants gained power they hadn't dreamed of for centuries? Welcome to England mid-14th century, a time of great paradox when plague killed a third of the population, but survivors began living better. Today you will live through a day of a medieval peasant, a person who feeds the kingdom but barely makes ends meet himself. You will learn how technologies that seem primitive were actually ingenious for their time. You will meet family values stronger than any written laws. You will understand why Sunday Mass in incomprehensible Latin was more important than daily earnings. You will see how market day transformed the village into a hive of activity. And you will learn that in 11 years, peasants with pitchforks will march on London, demanding freedom. If you enjoy what we create, please like and subscribe. Write in the comments where you're listening from. We're interested to know who travels with us through the centuries, ready to see England that no longer exists. Hear the ringing of church bells over the fields. Feel the smell of freshly baked bread and smoke from hearths. Close your eyes. The journey begins. Welcome to 14th century England, a time of the greatest paradox in medieval European history. The Black Death has just claimed a third of the population. 40 million people died in 2 years, but the surviving peasants gained something they never had in 1,000 years: power. Working hands are scarce, land lies empty, lords are willing to pay more to those who agree to plough their fields. Laws try to freeze the old order, but something has broken irreversibly. In 40 years, peasants with pitchforks will march on London with the slogan, "When Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman?" For now, the village lives in tense equilibrium between past and future. Here is what is surprising. In 14th century England live about 3 million people, fewer than in modern Manchester. 9 out of 10 are peasants. London counts 50,000 inhabitants and is considered a huge city. The rest of the country consists of 8,000 villages scattered across hills and valleys. Each village is an autonomous world. Most peasants spend their entire lives within a 10-mile radius of their birthplace. The sea is 40 miles away, but many have never seen it. London is a day's journey, but people go there once in a lifetime, if at all. The county of Kent in the southeast is one of the richest places in England. Fertile soils, mild climate, proximity to the continent. Here they grow wheat for London bakers, raise sheep for Flemish weavers. The village we enter is typical for the region. 150 people, 300 acres of arable land, 100 acres of forest, meadows along the river. This is a manor, a feudal estate belonging to a baron who lives in a castle and owns 20 such villages. He visits here once a year at Christmas. The rest of the time the village is managed by a bailiff, a steward, a local peasant who gained power and came to hate his neighbours for it. Archaeologists of the 20th century will excavate this village and discover something unexpected. It is much older than it seems. Saxons founded it in the 7th century, Vikings burned it in the 9th, Normans rebuilt it in the 11th. In 1086, the scribes of William the Conqueror entered it in the Domesday Book, a giant census of all England. The entry reads, "Manor of Ashford, land for 12 ploughs, 20 villeins, 8 free peasants, a mill, forest for 30 pigs." The numbers have changed, but the structure remains the same. The village is a living organism that survived plague, famine, wars, and continues to exist. The village layout follows the logic of survival. At the centre stands a stone church with a square tower. Stone was hauled from a quarry 15 miles away. Construction took 20 years. This is the only stone building in the area, and the tallest structure, 30 feet, to the cross on the tower. The church is visible from the fields, its bell audible 3 miles away. Around the church lies the cemetery where 12 generations of peasants are buried. During the plague, mass graves were dug here. The cemetery doubled in size in 2 years. The ground here is holy but also practical, fertilized by the bones of ancestors. Houses line the single street and scatter around the edges. These are cottages of wood, woven twigs and clay. The technology is called wattle and daub. Walls a foot thick, keep warmth in winter and coolness in summer. Roofs of straw or reed, the material is free, grows in the marshes. One problem, straw burns. Every 10 years the village experiences a fire, destroying 2 or 3 houses. People rebuild them in a week. Materials are at hand. Neighbors help for free. Mutual aid is not charity, but insurance. Today your neighbor's house burned, tomorrow yours will. Now here is the most interesting part, the open field system. Around the village lie 3 huge fields, each of 100 acres. The fields are not fenced, divided into narrow strips 20 feet wide and 200 yards long. Each peasant owns not a single plot, but a dozen strips scattered across all fields. Why such complexity? Fairness. Good land alternates with poor, low land with hill. No one gets an advantage. But there are drawbacks. To reach your strip, you must cross others' land. Disputes about boundaries and trampled crops are the main entertainment at manorial court. The 3-field system is a technological revolution of the 8th century that doubled food production. One field is sown with winter wheat in autumn, the second with spring barley in spring. The third is left fallow. The land rests, sheep graze on it, their manure fertilizes the soil. Each year the fields exchange roles in rotation. The system is simple but effective. The land does not exhaust itself. Harvests are stable. This technology will last until the 18th century, when landlords will enclose the fields and evict the peasants. Enclosure will mark the beginning of the end of the medieval village. The climate of the 14th century differs from the modern one. Scientists call this period the beginning of the Little Ice Age. Winters grew colder, summers shorter and rainier. The Thames in London freezes, fairs are held on the ice. Vineyards that Romans planted in Britain no longer bear fruit, too cold. Wheat harvests decline, peasants switch to barley and oats, hardier crops. Crop failure happens every 5 to 7 years. In 1315 to 1317, the Great Famine killed 10% of England's population. People ate cats, dogs, tree bark. Chronicles report cases of cannibalism in cities. Here is a paradox. 14th century peasants work less than their descendants in the 19th. Studies of manorial records show the average peasant labors on the Lord's fields 150 days a year. The rest of the time is work on his own land, but at a free pace. Sundays and church holidays are days off. And there are many holidays. Christmas with 12 days of feasting, Easter, Trinity, St. John's Day, Harvest Festival, All Saints' Day. In total, about 80 non-working days per year. The Industrial Revolution will take away these holidays and force work 300 days straight. The forest begins beyond the last field, a dark wall of oaks, ashes, beeches. This is royal forest, guarded by forest laws. Hunting deer, boars, hares is forbidden under pain of death. A poacher can be blinded, castrated, or hanged. Punishment depends on the Lord's mood. But peasants take risks. Meat is too desirable. At night men creep into the thicket with homemade snares. If caught, the family loses its breadwinner. If not caught, there will be meat for a week. The game is worth the risk. Foresters know about poaching, sometimes turn a blind eye for a share of the catch. The village is almost self-sufficient. Bread from own grain, clothing from own wool, meat from own animals, wood from own forest. Only 4 things must be bought: salt for preserving meat, iron for tools, wine for church, spices for the wealthy. Salt is extracted on the coast by evaporating sea water. Iron is forged from bog ore, collected in swamps, smelted in primitive furnaces. Quality is poor, tools dull quickly, but there is no choice. Wine comes from France in barrels. The English climate is too cold for grapes. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves cost like gold, seen only in the Lord's house. Here is what is remarkable. Archaeological excavations of the 20th century in deserted medieval villages found animal bones, pottery shards, iron tools, coins. Analysis of bones showed that peasants ate little meat, mainly old sheep and sick pigs. Young animals were sold at market, money needed for paying taxes. Pottery is crude, locally made, but fragments of imported ware from France and Flanders appear. Trade existed even at the village level. Coins are rare. Most transactions were conducted in kind. But silver pennies are found in every village, meaning the money economy was penetrating even here. The sounds of the village, the bell tolls 6 times a day, marking the church hours. Roosters crow at dawn, cows low in the evening, demanding milking. The blacksmith's hammer rings from morning to night. Iron does not wait. The millstones grind, crushing grain. Women sing at spinning wheels, ancient songs in English not yet touched by literature. Children shout, playing ball with a pig's bladder. Dogs bark at strangers. Every unfamiliar person is suspicious. On Sundays, the priest reads Mass in Latin, which no one understands, but all listen reverently. Life here is short and harsh. Average life expectancy is 35 years, but this statistic is deceptive. Half of children die before 5 from diseases that modern medicine treats with antibiotics. Those who reach 20 often live to 60. Elders are rare but respected. Their experience is priceless in a world without books. Women die in childbirth more often than men in fights. Toothache, cold, diarrhea can kill. Fractures heal crooked. Wounds fester. Blindness from old age is common. But people live, bear children, laugh, celebrate, believe in God, and hope for harvest. You wake an hour before dawn on an October morning in 1370. The rooster has not yet crowed. You are awakened by cold. The fire in the hearth died during the night. The temperature inside the cottage dropped to match the temperature outside. You lie on a straw mattress, covered with a rough woolen blanket, and your daytime clothes. They are removed only in the hottest weather. Next to you, your wife snores. On the other side, 3 children breathe softly. Everyone sleeps in one room, everyone on one wooden platform raised above the earthen floor. Body heat is the only heating on cold nights. You are William, a villain of 32 years, which means you are tied to this land, cannot leave without the Lord's permission. Your children will be born equally unfree. The first action of the day is to light the fire. You rise, feet touching the cold earthen floor. The floor is packed, mixed with manure and straw, hard but not stone. In winter, it is covered with rushes, changed once a month. Now it is October, the rushes still fresh, smelling of marsh. You feel in the darkness for flint, steel, tinder made from charred cloth. You strike sparks once, twice, 5 times. The tinder smoulders, you blow on it, add dry grass, thin splinters. After 5 minutes, flame appears. You add kindling, then logs. Fire is the heart of the home. Without it, there is no life. Lighting fire each morning is a ritual as ancient as humanity, and you repeat it 365 times a year. Here is a paradox. Your house has no chimney. Smoke rises to the roof and exits through a hole in the thatch. The ceiling is black with soot, the walls too. Smoke stings the eyes, but this is the price of warmth. On the other hand, thatch soaked with smoke becomes unattractive to rats and insects. Side effect: chronic lung disease in all who live to old age. Archaeologists of the 20th century will examine skeletons of medieval peasants and find characteristic damage to respiratory passages. But there is no choice. Stone chimneys are available only to the wealthy. Their construction costs your family's annual income. While the fire grows, you survey your house. One room 20 feet long, 15 feet wide. Ceiling height is 7 feet. You almost touch the beams with your head. Walls of woven twigs plastered with a mixture of clay, manure, and straw. Outside the walls are whitewashed with lime. Once a year before Easter, your wife renews the whitewash. Lime kills parasites, gives an illusion of cleanliness. There are no windows, only 2 openings the size of a palm, covered with ox bladder. It lets light through but not wind. Glass exists, you have seen it in church, but it costs as much as a land holding. There is almost no furniture. A wooden table knocked together from rough boards. 2 benches. A chest for storing clothes and grain. The most valuable thing in the house. You made it yourself from oak boards. Shelves along the walls for dishes. Hooks in the beams for smoked meat. Bunches of onions, bundles of herbs. Your wife's spinning wheel in the corner. Children's toys, a rag doll, a wooden sword, a ball made from a pig's bladder. All the family's possessions would fit on one cart. In a fire, you would have time to save only the chest and the children. The house will burn in 10 minutes, but it can be rebuilt in a week. Water in a clay jug by the hearth. You wash, splash water on your face, rub your skin. There is no soap, it is boiled only for washing clothes once a month. You clean your teeth with a hazel twig, chew the end until it frays, then rub teeth and gums. The method is ancient but works. Many peasants live to 40 with all their teeth. The problem is not cleaning but diet. Bread contains sand and stone dust from millstones. This wears down enamel. You already have 2 teeth worn to the gums, but there is no pain. The process is slow. Clothing lies on you, you slept in it. Linen shirt, undyed, grey-coloured. Woolen tunic to the knees, brown, patched in many places. Trousers of coarse cloth tied to the belt with string. Wool stockings, thick, prickly. Your wife wove all this herself from the wool of your sheep. The process took half a year. Shearing, washing wool, spinning, weaving, sewing. Clothing serves 10 years, then goes for patches for new. Nothing is thrown away. Shoes are your pride. Leather with wooden soles bought at market for 3 silver pennies. This is 1/3 of your annual income, but without footwear you cannot survive in English mud. Your wife rises with you. Women do not sleep longer than men. Her name is Alice. She is 28 years old, looks 40. 10 years of marriage, 6 births, 3 living children. She is pregnant again, 4th month. You married at 16 and 14, typical age for peasants. The marriage was arranged by parents, but you were lucky. Alice is hard-working, patient, gives birth easily. Her dowry, a cow and 3 chickens, increased your herd. You paid the Lord a fine for the right to marry, 6 pennies, a huge sum. A villain does not control even his own marriage. Alice begins preparing breakfast. She takes barley flour from a clay pot, mixes with water, adds salt. The result is thick porridge that will cook for an hour over the fire. Salt is expensive, bought once every 3 months, used sparingly. She adds dried peas to the porridge. Protein is necessary for work. cuts a slice of bread, black, dense, baked 3 days ago. The bread is hard, must be soaked in porridge. Fresh bread is eaten only on Sundays. Weekdays are the time for stale. She fetches a jug of ale, weak beer from barley. Water from the well is not drunk. Dangerous. Last year, 3 children died from diarrhea after drinking water. Ale is safe. Boiling kills disease. Hops preserve. Every woman brews ale at home. The recipe passes from mother to daughter. Here is what is surprising. Your family eats 4 pounds of bread per day. That is 1.5 kilograms of pure grain. Per year, 1,400 pounds, 20 bushels of wheat and barley. Half you grow on your strips, half you buy with earned money. Bread is the basis of nutrition, 70% of calories. Meat you eat once a week on Sundays. Chicken, a piece of salted pork, eggs. Fish on Fridays, a fast day the church requires. Vegetables every day, cabbage, onions, turnips, peas. Fruit, apples in autumn, berries in summer. Cheese is a luxury. Milk goes to butter for sale. The diet is monotonous but sufficient. You weigh 140 pounds, stand 5 feet 6 inches tall, average size for a peasant. While Alice cooks, you go check the animals. You exit the house. Morning is foggy, cold, dew on the grass. Sky is grey. Sun has not yet risen. You walk to the sty. There are 2 pigs, 3 chickens, a cow. The pigs grunt, demanding food. You pour out a bucket of food scraps, vegetable peelings, soured porridge, grass. Pigs eat everything, turning waste into meat. The chickens are laying. You collect 3 eggs. 2 you will sell at market, 1 you will eat. The cow gives 2 gallons of milk per day. You milk her quickly, practiced. You carry the milk to the house. Alice will churn butter this evening. You return to the house. Porridge is ready. The family sits down to breakfast. You pray before eating, briefly in Latin, words learned from childhood, meaning unclear. You eat with wooden spoons from a common pot. Porridge is hot, thick, filling. Bread soaks in the porridge, becomes softer. Ale washes down breakfast, warm, slightly sour, with a hint of hops. Children eat silently. There is no talking at table. This is the rule. Eldest son John, 10 years old, helps in the fields. Daughter Marjorie, 7 years old, helps mother. Youngest Thomas, 3 years old, plays with a wooden toy. Breakfast ends in 15 minutes. You rise, time to work. You take the sickle from the shelf, whetstone, leather bag with bread and onion, lunch in the field. John takes a pitchfork. Alice stays home, washing, cooking, spinning, caring for the baby and the garden. Marjorie will go with the chickens to the common meadow. Children's work, but necessary. The day has begun as it begins every day for the past 10 years. Work until dark, return home, supper, prayer, sleep. Tomorrow will be the same, and the day after. And in a year. So lived your grandfathers, so will live your grandchildren. The rhythm of life does not change for centuries. It is as reliable as sunrise. You walk to the field with a sickle in hand. October is the time after harvest, but work never ends. Today is labor service, compulsory work on the Lord's fields. 3 days a week you work for the Lord for free, 3 days on your own land. Sunday is a day of rest. The system has existed for 500 years and is considered fair. The Lord owns the land, you own the right to work it. The exchange seems unequal, but there is no alternative. Forests are full of bandits, roads are dangerous. Without the Lord's protection, a peasant is defenseless. At least that is what the priest says every Sunday. Here is a paradox. After the Black Death, you work less than your grandfather. Labor service used to be 5 days a week. Now working hands are scarce, lords compete for peasants. Some offer monetary payment instead of labor service, a shocking novelty. You have heard that in a neighbouring manor, peasants have refused labor service altogether and pay the lord in money. The law forbids this. But who will plough the fields if peasants leave? Power is slowly flowing downward, though no one acknowledges this aloud. The field is half a mile from the village. You walk along the path, John beside you. Fog is dispersing, sun is rising, pale, hidden by clouds. Temperature is around 5 degrees Celsius. By midday it will warm to 10. England knows no frost, but dampness penetrates bones deeper than cold. Your hands have grown rough from work, covered with calluses and scars. Your back aches in the mornings, the result of 20 years of bending over earth. At 40 you'll be bent like an old man. At 50 you will barely be able to walk. Arthritis is the occupational disease of peasants. Archaeologists find its traces on every medieval skeleton over 40 years old. 20 men are already working in the field, all the men of the village from 12 to 60 years. The bailiff stands aside, watching. His name is Robert. He is 45, son of a peasant, but the Lord gave him power. Robert receives exemption from labor service and 10% of the harvest collected. Payment for betraying neighbors, so many think, but do not say aloud. Robert records who came, who was late, who works poorly. Fines are deducted from your share of the harvest. The control system is perfect. Money has not yet invented better accounting. Today's task is to prepare the field for winter sowing. The land was already ploughed with a heavy plough last week. Now it is necessary to break up clods of earth, pick out stones, level the surface. Work is monotonous, exhausting, endless. You take a wooden hoe, a tool as ancient as agriculture. You strike the hard clods, crushing them. The back bends, straightens, bends again. Thousands of movements per day. John works nearby, tries not to fall behind. At 10 years old, he is already almost an adult worker. School does not exist. Education is observing father and repeating his actions. By 15, John will know everything about farming. He will never learn to read. Letters are for priests and merchants. Here is what is remarkable. The tools you work with have not changed since the Roman Empire. A sickle with a bronze blade was found in a Roman villa nearby. The shape is the same as your iron one. Hoe, spade, pitchfork. The design is perfect. Nothing to improve. The only innovation of recent centuries is the heavy plough with iron mouldboard. It turns the earth deeper than the light Roman plough, allows working the heavy clay soils of northern Europe. This 8th century innovation made medieval England's existence possible. The plough is the most valuable tool in the village. Its value equals 2 cows. The iron ploughshare is forged by the blacksmith, the wooden frame made by the carpenter. You do not own the plough individually, it belongs to the community, used in turn. The plough is pulled by 8 oxen gathered from 4 families. You provide 2 oxen, neighbors provide the rest. Ploughing is a collective enterprise. One controls the plough, another drives the oxen. A third walks ahead, removes stones. In a day, 1 acre is ploughed, a strip 220 yards long. The length is not random, it is the distance oxen travel without rest. Hence the word furlong, a measure of length still used today. Work continues until midday. The sun is hidden by clouds. Time is determined by the position of the bright spot in the sky. Your stomach tells you time to eat. The bailiff whistles, work stops. You sit on the ground, take out bread and an onion. You bite the bread, hard, dark, sour to taste. You chew the onion, sharp, tears well in your eyes, but it kills hunger. You drink water from a flask, ale is not taken to the field. Too valuable. Lunch lasts half an hour. Men talk about weather, harvest, rumors. Someone says that in a neighboring village the bailiff stole grain and sold it at market. Another tells of a wolf that killed a sheep. A third mentions that the Lord raised the dews. Discontent smoulders, but there is no open protest. Fear is stronger than anger. After lunch, work again. The back aches more, hands tremble from fatigue. The sun begins to decline toward the horizon. You work faster, need to finish the section before dark. The bailiff shouts, hurries, threatens fines. You clench your teeth, continue. In your consciousness there is no room for indignation. This is life, it has always been so, it will always be so. Questions are not asked, fate is not disputed. The church teaches, suffering in this world is payment for Adam's sins. Patience will be rewarded with paradise. You believe because the alternative is despair. By 4 in the afternoon, work is finished. 2 acres of field are prepared for sowing. Tomorrow another crew will sow them with winter rye. Rye is hardier than wheat, grows on poor soils, tolerates cold. Wheat is grown on the best lands, sold in town or given to the Lord. Rye is peasant's bread, dark and coarse, but filling. The rye harvest will be gathered in July next year. From 2 acres they will get 10 bushels of grain. Half will go for seeds for the next sowing, half to the Lord's barns. Such is the mathematics of serf labour. You work on someone else's land, the results belong to another. You walk home tired, but work is not finished. Ahead are evening duties. Feed the animals, bring water from the well, chop firewood for tomorrow. Alice has prepared supper, vegetable stew with a piece of salted bacon. You eat silently, quickly. The children are already asleep. After supper, a short prayer, and you collapse on the straw without undressing. Sleep comes instantly, deep, without dreams. In 8 hours the rooster will crow and everything will begin again. So passes every day from March to November. In winter there is less work. Thresh grain in the barn, repair tools, stock firewood, but there is never relaxation. The land demands constant attention. 1 year of laziness and the family starves. 2 weeks of rain and the harvest rots. Early frosts and grain does not have time to ripen. You live on the edge of survival, 1 step from catastrophe. This life is not romantic. It is harsh, monotonous, merciless. But this is your life, the only one you know. Medieval English society is built like a pyramid. At the top stands the king, God's anointed, Christ's vicar on earth. Below him are barons owning hundreds of manors. Lower still are knights holding land in exchange for military service. Even lower are priests praying for everyone's souls. At the very bottom are peasants feeding everyone else. You stand at the pyramid's base where the weight of the entire structure presses hardest. The church teaches this is divine order. Some pray, others fight, still others work. Each estate is necessary, each performs its function. The question is why those who work the most own the least. Here is a paradox. Peasants comprise 90% of the population but own only 30% of the land. The rest belongs to the king, church, barons. The mathematics of power is simple. The minority controls the majority because the minority is armed and trained to kill. A knight in armor is worth 100 peasants with pitchforks. A castle with a garrison keeps a dozen villages obedient. Violence is feudalism's foundation, though no one calls it that directly. Within the peasant estate exists a hierarchy. At the top stand free peasants, freeholders. They own land by right, pay the lord fixed rent in money, are free to leave as they wish. 5 out of 150 people in the village are freeholders. They despise villains and keep apart. 1 freeholder owns the mill, another the forge, a third rents out land. Freedom transforms them into mini-capitalists long before capitalism's appearance. You are a villain, a serf. Formerly not a slave, you cannot be sold separately from the land. But practically unfree, tied to the manor, cannot leave without the Lord's permission. Your children inherit your status. Want to marry, pay a fine to the Lord. Want to apprentice your son? Pay. Your daughter marries outside the manor? Pay. Every life choice costs money. Freedom is measured in silver pennies, of which you have almost none. Below villains stand cottars, landless peasants. They own only a cottage with a garden, work as labourers for prosperous peasants or in labour service. Their position is desperate, one crop failure, one illness, and the family begs. The village has 20 cottar families. Their children often leave for the city, become servants, day labourers, thieves. Cities beckon with freedom. By law, any serf who lives in a city for a year and a day becomes free. But city life is no easier. Filth, disease, crime. Many return to the village, preferring familiar slavery to unfamiliar freedom. The bailiff, the manor's steward, occupies a strange position. He is a peasant by birth, but received power from the Lord. His function is overseer, monitors work, collects dues, judges minor disputes, punishes violators. In return, he receives exemption from labour service, better land, a share of the harvest. The village hates him, but also needs him. Without a mediator, the Lord would pressure peasants more directly. The bailiff balances between two worlds. Too soft, the Lord will replace him. Too harsh, peasants might kill him. Last summer, in a neighbouring manor, the bailiff was found in a ditch with a crushed skull. The killer was not found. No one searched particularly hard. The priest is a separate caste. He is not from the village, appointed by the bishop, speaks Latin, can read. His role is mediator between peasants and God. Without a priest there are no sacraments, no salvation of the soul, no hope for heaven. This gives enormous power. The priest receives a tithe, 10% of all harvest, plus payment for baptisms, weddings, funerals, plus land, the glebe, which peasants work for free. As a result, the priest lives better than any peasant. He has a stone house next to the church, servants, a horse. He eats meat every day, drinks wine, wears clean clothes. Peasants resent this, but pay. Fear of hell is stronger than greed. Here is what is interesting. Priests formally take a vow of celibacy, but reality is different. Your priest, Father Edmund, has a servant, Joan. Everyone knows she is not just a servant. She has 2 children who resemble the priest. The bishop knows, turns a blind eye. Too many priests violate the vow. Punishing all is impossible. Peasants chuckle but respect Father Edmund. He is honest, does not take extra, cares for the sick during epidemics. Once a month, the manorial court convenes. All adult men must attend. The bailiff presides. The priest records decisions in Latin. Disputes are considered. One peasant accuses another of stealing a sheaf of grain. Witnesses speak. The accused denies. The court decides. A fine of 2 pennies or a day in the stocks on the village square. Another case, a peasant let his pigs into another's field. The pigs trampled the crops. Fine, a penny and a promise to build a fence. Third case, a widow has not paid dues for 3 months. The court rules if she does not pay by Christmas, she loses the land. Justice is rough but understandable. Law is unwritten based on custom. What grandfathers did is right now. The manorial court possesses real power. It can fine, punish physically, take away land. But serious crimes, murder, rape, major theft, are transferred to the royal court. A judge comes there twice a year, hears cases, passes sentences. Punishments are cruel: theft, hand cut off, murder, hanging, rape, castration. Executions are public, conducted in the nearest town's market square. The village goes to watch. Entertainment is scarce. A criminal's death is both spectacle and lesson. The lord of the manor is a distant and powerful figure. His name is Sir Richard de Clare, a baron owning 20 manors in Kent and Sussex. He lives in a castle 20 miles away, surrounded by knights, servants, hunting dogs. You have seen him 3 times in your life. At Christmas, when he came to collect dues and held a feast for peasants, a tradition demonstrating generosity and reinforcing power. The feast was modest: bread, ale, roasted mutton. The Lord sat at a separate table, ate swan and drank wine. His presence reminded of the order of things. He above, you below, between you a chasm that cannot be crossed. Above the Lord stand larger barons, earls, dukes. Above them the king. Edward III has ruled for 43 years. He is old, sick. Power actually belongs to his son, the Black Prince, a warrior famed in battles of the 100 Years' War. War with France has lasted decades, costs enormous money. Money is taken from peasants through taxes. Last autumn, royal collectors came to the village, demanded a poll tax, 4 pennies from every person over 14. For your family, this is 8 pennies, a month's income. You borrowed money from a freeholder at interest. The debt still hangs, eating part of the harvest. Here is a paradox. The king is the most powerful and most distant. His decisions affect your life: taxes, laws, wars. But you have never seen him, never will. He lives in London or Windsor, in a world of luxury unimaginable to a peasant. His clothing costs as much as your entire village. His horse eats better than you. His hunting grounds are larger than a county. And all this is built on your labor, on the sweat of thousands of peasants whose names will never enter the chronicles. Social mobility is almost impossible. Born a peasant, die a peasant. Your children will be peasants. Their children too. Exceptions are rare. A peasant's son becomes a priest, receives education, rises in church hierarchy, or runs to the city, grows rich through trade, buys land, becomes a gentleman, or joins the army, distinguishes himself in battle, receives knighthood. But these are ones out of thousands. For most, the social ladder is locked. Status is inherited like eye color. Nevertheless, the system is cracking. After the Black Death, the power of lords weakened. Peasants feel this, begin demanding more. In some manners they refuse labour service, offer to pay in money. In others they leave as whole families seeking better conditions. Lords try to maintain the old order, but time works against them. In 11 years, in 1381, discontent will explode. Tens of thousands of peasants will march on London demanding the abolition of serfdom. The uprising will be suppressed, leaders executed, but something will change irreversibly. The end of serfdom is a matter of time, though another century will pass before it disappears completely. Sunday morning begins with the bell tolling. The church bell rings at 7 in the morning, summoning the village to Mass. Missing service is both sin and violation of communal order. The bailiff marks the absent, collects a fine, 2 pennies for missing without good reason. The church in the 14th century is not merely a place of prayer. It is the center of public life, a meeting place, source of news, the village's moral compass. You walk to church with your whole family. Alice carries the youngest, older children run ahead. All are dressed in their best clothes, clean tunics, washed faces. Sunday is the Lord's Day. A day of rest from labor. A chance to pause and think about the eternal. The church stands at the village center, stone, cool inside even in summer, smelling of incense and beeswax from candles. Inside is half darkness. Windows are narrow, glass-colored, creates muted light. Walls are covered with frescoes of biblical scenes, Christ's birth, miracles of saints, angels with golden wings. Colors are bright, images beautiful. For illiterate peasants, frescoes are a way to see sacred history, to touch the heavenly. Men stand on the right, women on the left, an ancient tradition observed unfailingly. There are no benches, everyone stands on the stone floor. Mass lasts an hour, sometimes two. This is time belonging to God, time for reflection on life and meaning. The priest emerges in white vestments embroidered with gold, a gift from parishioners made 20 years ago. Begins the service in Latin, a language ancient and sacred. You do not understand the words, but know the order of service by heart, repeated every Sunday since childhood. Mass is a ritual connecting generations. Your grandfather heard the same words. Your grandchildren will hear them again. Here is what is interesting. The Church preserves Scripture in Latin, the language of scholars and priests. John Wycliffe, an Oxford theologian, began translating the Bible into English 10 years ago. He asserts, every Christian should read God's Word in his native language. Debates about this proceed in universities and monasteries. For now, the Bible remains Latin, but Wycliffe's ideas are spreading, especially among literate townspeople. Perhaps in a generation, peasants will be able to hear Scripture in comprehensible language. The center of Mass is the Eucharist, the sacrament of transforming bread and wine into Christ's body and blood. The priest raises the wafer, pronounces words of consecration. A bell rings, all fall to their knees. This is a moment of silence and reverence when the heavenly is present among people. Communion is taken once a year, at Easter. You receive a tiny piece of consecrated bread. Wash it down with a sip of wine. This is a moment of unity with God and community, a reminder that all are equal before the Creator. The sermon follows the Eucharist. Father Edmund speaks in English, in simple words, about how to live righteously. Themes are familiar: help your neighbor, do not envy others, work honestly, honor parents, care for the weak. The priest gives examples from village life, sometimes with gentle humor. All listen attentively. The sermon provides moral guidelines for the week. Salvation, Father Edmund teaches, is achieved through good deeds, honest labor, care for family, faith in God's mercy. Confession is mandatory once a year before Easter. You come to the priest, kneel, list transgressions. Lied to a neighbor, did not help the widow with harvest, envied a prosperous peasant. The priest listens patiently, gives advice, assigns simple penance, recite prayers, fast several days, help someone in need, absolve sins, reminding of forgiveness and new beginnings. You leave with a sense of relief, ready to start anew. Official Christianity is woven with ancient customs. You are Christian but also observe ancestors' traditions. You leave bread on the threshold on St. John's Eve, a custom bringing luck to the house. You wear an amulet, a small iron cross protecting on the road. Alice knows herbs and charms for colds, brews tea, whispers a prayer over a sick child. The Church does not approve but understands. Old knowledge helps survival when there is no doctor for dozens of miles. Saints are closer and more comprehensible than distant. God. Each saint patronizes a sphere of life. Saint Anthony helps find the lost. Saint Agatha protects from fires. Saint Christopher guards travelers. You pray to saints with concrete requests: good harvest, health for children, safety on the road. Their statues stand in the church, candles burn before them. You buy a candle for a penny, place it before the statue of St. George, patron of England. This is not magic, but a tradition of communication with heavenly intercessors. Relics are considered sacred. The Church preserves a fragment of St. Cuthbert's relics, so the priest claims. The relic is placed in a beautiful casket displayed once a year on the saint's feast day. Believers touch the casket with reverence, asking for help and blessing. Faith in the power of relics is deep. They connect the earthly church with the heavenly, past with present. The calendar of church holidays creates life's rhythm. Christmas is 12 days of joy, starting December 25th. Work ceases, families gather together, share food and songs. The priest blesses the Christmas table, all receive communion. Christmas Eve is a special Mass, the church lit by hundreds of candles, the choir sings ancient hymns. Epiphany in January, Candlemas in February with blessing of candles, Annunciation in March. Each holiday brings its rites and hopes. Lent before Easter is 40 days of simple food without meat and dairy. You eat bread, vegetables, fish on Fridays. Lent is a time of purification, reflection, preparation for the year's main celebration. Easter is the day of Christ's resurrection and life's renewal. Dyed eggs symbolize new beginning, roasted lamb is festive fare, fresh bread marks the end of fasting. Easter morning begins with joyful Mass, when all sing and give thanks for life. Medieval cosmology is simple and ordered. Earth is the center of creation, surrounded by spheres of planets and stars. Above all are the heavens where angels and righteous souls dwell. God created the world in 6 days, rested on the 7th, a model for humanity. Sun and moon move across the sky, marking days and seasons. Stars are fixed, each constellation tells a biblical story. The world is arranged with purpose. Each creature has its place in the divine plan. The afterlife is a subject of faith and hope. The Church teaches of eternal life after death. The righteous enter paradise, a place of light, peace, and joy. Those who need purification undergo temporary trial, then join the blessed. Salvation is available through faith, good deeds, church sacraments. This knowledge gives comfort. Death is not the end, but transition to better existence. The priest reminds of this at every funeral, reading prayers for the soul's repose. The deceased are buried in the church cemetery, sacred ground next to the temple. Funerals are conducted simply. The body is wrapped in a shroud, lowered into earth. The priest reads prayers. A wooden cross with the name is placed. The family returns every Sunday, prays for the departed soul. The connection between living and dead is maintained through prayer and memory. All Saints' Day in November is a special time of remembrance, when candles are lit for all who have passed. The Church provides not only faith, but life's structure. The bell marks hours of day, morning, midday, evening prayer. The church calendar divides the year into sacred periods. Sundays give rest from labor. Holidays create moments of joy amid monotonous work. Sacraments, baptism, communion, marriage, unction mark important life stages. Without the church, life would be formless, devoid of meaning. Faith gives comfort in difficult times. When there is crop failure, when there is illness, when a child dies, the church explains suffering as a trial that God sends to strengthen the spirit. This is not punishment, but an opportunity to show patience and faith. The priest comes to the sick, prays, gives hope. The community gathers, helps those in need. Religion is not only faith in God, but also a system of mutual support, binding the village together. The 10 Commandments are the foundation of morality that all know. Honor God, do not kill, do not steal, speak truth, respect parents, help your neighbor. Simple rules for righteous living. You try to follow them, though it does not always work out. But the church teaches of forgiveness and mercy. God understands human weakness, is ready to forgive those who sincerely repent. This hope sustains on the hardest days, reminding life is full of meaning, sufferings are temporary, ahead awaits eternal peace. A peasant's year is measured not by calendar months, but by holidays. Between Christmas and Easter, between harvest and sowing, life flows by the sacred cycle established by the Church centuries ago. Holidays are not merely days of rest. They are moments when the monotony of labor is interrupted by joy, when the village gathers together, when one can forget hardships and enjoy simple pleasures, food, music, companionship. Christmas is the main winter holiday, beginning December 25th and lasting 12 days until Epiphany. This time of year is the darkest and coldest. Harvest is gathered, stores in barns, heavy field work, finished until spring. Christmas days are a respite between autumn labors and spring ploughing. Preparation begins a week ahead. Women bake bread from the finest wheat flour. Men slaughter a pig or sheep fattened specially for the holiday. Children help decorate the house with branches of evergreen ivy and holly, symbols of life amid winter deadness. Christmas Eve is a special evening. Work ceases at noon. All go to church for evening mass. The temple is lit by hundreds of candles, their flickering light reflected in the altar's gilding. The priest is robed in white festive vestments. The choir sings ancient hymns about Christ's birth in Bethlehem. Voices echo under the vaults, creating a sense of something greater than everyday life. After Mass, the village returns home for festive supper. On the table, roasted meat, white bread instead of usual black, ale fresher and stronger than usual, apples and nuts saved from autumn. The 12 days of Christmas are a time of feasts, games, visiting neighbors. Work is forbidden by church law. Violators are fined. This is the only period of the year when peasants can truly rest. Children play in snow if it has fallen. Adults gather by hearths, tell stories. Old folk recall past years. Young ones listen. The lord of the manor holds a feast for peasants, a tradition showing his generosity. Villains receive a loaf of white bread and a mug of ale from the lord. This is a gesture confirming social order. The lord gives, peasants are grateful. Epiphany, on January 6th, completes the Christmas cycle. The priest blesses water, parishioners take it home. It is believed that Epiphany water possesses healing properties. After Epiphany, life returns to usual rhythm. But winter work is lighter than summer. Threshing grain in the barn, repairing tools, weaving baskets, spinning wool. February brings Candlemas, the second of the month, exactly 40 days after Christmas. This is a feast of light. The priest blesses candles that parishioners brought from home. These candles will be lit during illnesses, storms, difficult births. Consecrated fire protects and comforts. The day lengthens, winter weakens, first signs of spring appear. Peasants begin preparing for the new agricultural cycle. Shrovetide precedes Lent. The last week before the fast is time to finish all stores of meat, eggs, butter. Nothing should go to waste. Women fry pancakes in lard, using the last eggs. Pancakes are a symbol of the sun returning after winter. Children run with pancakes, hold contests. Men play village football, a rough game without rules, where two teams try to drive a pig's bladder to the opponent's goal. The game lasts for hours, ends with bruises and laughter. Lent begins with Ash Wednesday. The priest marks foreheads with ash crosses, reminding, "Dust you are, and to dust you shall return." 40 days of simple food ahead: bread, vegetables, water instead of ale, fish on Fridays. Meat, milk, eggs are forbidden. For peasants accustomed to modest fare, the fast is not as hard as for the wealthy. But after a long winter, supplies are running out, spring is hungry time. They call it the hungry gap between the end of old stores and appearance of new harvest. Easter is the high point of the church year. The date changes each year, depends on the lunar calendar, but always in spring. Preparation begins a week ahead. Holy Week is a time of strict fasting and prayers. Good Friday is a day of mourning, work is forbidden, peasants spend the day in church. Holy Saturday is a day of waiting. And then Easter morning, bells ring at dawn announcing resurrection. Mass is joyful with singing "The fast is ended." One can eat meat and eggs again. The Easter table is a feast of abundance after weeks of abstinence. Dyed eggs, red, yellow, green, coloured with herb decoctions and onion skins. Children play games with eggs, roll them down hills, knock them against each other. Roasted lamb or kid, the first meat in 40 days. Fresh bread from new flour, young cheese. This is a time of renewal. Nature resurrects after winter, harvest is sown, warm months lie ahead. May brings a special holiday, the 1st of May, a day not ecclesiastical but popular, coming from antiquity. Young people rise before dawn, go to the forest, cut down a tall tree, strip it of branches leaving only the top. Bring it to the village, erect it in the square, the maypole. Decorate it with ribbons, flowers. Girls in white dresses dance around the tree holding ribbons. They choose a May Queen, the most beautiful girl, crown her with flowers. All day dancing, songs, games. The priest does not approve. Too much pagan in this holiday, but tradition is stronger than church prohibitions. Trinity is the 7th Sunday after Easter. The church is decorated with green branches, the floor covered with fresh-cut grass. The scent of summer fills the temple. This is the feast of the Holy Spirit, but for peasants, a feast of greenery, growth, promise of harvest. Fields are greening, wheat rises, cattle graze on lush meadows. Summer enters full strength. St. John's Day, June 24th, feast of St. John the Baptist, but also the day of summer solstice. The longest day of the year. In the evening, bonfires are lit on hills, an ancient custom that survived Christianization. Youth jump over fire, girls weave wreaths of flowers, float them down the river, divining about future husbands. They play bagpipes, sing old songs. The night is short, almost no darkness. Bonfires burn until dawn. Lammas, August 1st, Feast of First Bread. Harvest begins, first sheaves are cut. From new grain they bake a loaf, bring it to church. The priest blesses it. This is thanksgiving for harvest and prayer that reaping will be successful. The following weeks are the most intense time of year. All grain must be cut, bound into sheaves, brought to barn before rains begin. The whole village works from dawn to dark. But when harvest is finished, a great harvest festival. The harvest festival has no fixed date, conducted when the last sheaf is brought to barn. The Lord of the Manor holds a feast for all workers. Roasted geese, mutton, barrels of ale, pies. The last sheaf is decorated with ribbons, carried through the village with songs. This is thanksgiving to earth for generosity. Harvest is in barns. Enough for winter. One can breathe easy. All Saints' Day, November 1st. Autumn is deep. Leaves have fallen. Cold approaches. This is a day of remembrance of the deceased. Candles are lit in church for ancestors' souls. They remember those who departed this year. Old Thomas, who died in winter, little Agnes, who did not survive fever. Death is part of life, not an end, but a transition. Prayers of the living help souls on that path. November is the month of livestock slaughter. Cows and pigs that cannot be fed through winter are killed. Meat, salted, smoked, stored. St. Martin's Day, November 11th, traditional time of slaughter. Work is heavy but necessary. Meat will provide sustenance until spring. Advent is 4 weeks before Christmas. Days are shortest, nights long. A time of waiting and preparation. Candles on the altar are lit one by one each Sunday. 4 candles symbolize 4 weeks until Christ's birth. The circle closes, the year approaches its end, soon Christmas again, and the cycle will begin anew. Here is what is remarkable. Holidays structure not only spiritual, but practical life. They mark agricultural cycles, sowing, growth, harvest, earth's rest. They give rest at the right time, after harvest, in deep winter. They strengthen community, communal feasts, games, rites bind people together. Without holidays, life would be a chain of endless labor. Holidays are what makes life bearable, even joyful. They remind there is more than work, there is beauty, fellowship, the sacred. Family is the foundation of peasant life, the unit of survival in a world where cooperation matters more than individualism. Your family consists of 6 people. You, Alice, 3 children, and your mother, a 60-year-old widow who has lived with you for the past 5 years. 6 souls bound by blood and common goals. Each performs their role, each contributes. The family works like a well-coordinated team. One person's success becomes everyone's success. Family structure is patriarchal and ancient. You are the head of the family, father, breadwinner. Your word carries weight in making important decisions. When to sow, what to sell at market, how to plan the children's future. Custom supports your authority. In exchange, you provide protection, food, shelter, teaching of craft. This is a system of mutual obligations where everyone knows their role and expectations. Alice, your wife, manages the household with remarkable skill. Her sphere is the hearth, garden, animals, raising children. She rises early, works skillfully and efficiently, cooks 3 times a day, nutritious porridge for breakfast, bread and vegetables for lunch, hearty stew or soup for dinner, bakes bread twice a week, a process requiring experience and time, brews ale every 10 days, a traditional drink safe for the whole family, milks the cow, churns butter, makes cheese, washes clothes once a month using homemade soap from ash and fat. But Alice's work extends beyond the house. She tends the garden, half an acre of land behind the house where cabbage, onions, beans, turnips, medicinal herbs grow. The garden is her domain, a source of vitamins for the family year-round. She feeds chickens, collects fresh eggs every morning, watches over pigs, spins wool on long winter evenings, calm, meditative work. From yarn she weaves cloth, from cloth sews clothing for the whole family. Each garment is created by her hands with care and attention to detail. Here is what is interesting. Although formally Alice's status is lower than yours under medieval law, within the family relations are based on mutual respect. You consult with her on important matters. She is experienced, wise, understands husbandry deeply. The decision to sow more barley instead of wheat was her sound proposal. She advised selling the old cow and buying a young one. Formally, authority belongs to you. Practically, there exists partnership. Respect for each other has grown over 10 years of marriage. There is deep attachment, reliability, confidence in support. Children are joy and hope for the future. John, the eldest, is 10 years old. He is an active, curious boy, enthusiastically helping in the fields, learning men's work. By 15, he will master all necessary skills. By 20, he may receive his own plot of land. You patiently teach him how to properly hold the plough, when to sow, how to care for oxen. He is an attentive student, grasps quickly. You are proud of his progress. Marjorie, your daughter, is 7 years old. A cheerful, hard-working girl, helping mother in everything, carries water from the well, feeds chickens, learns to spin wool. Alice passes to her knowledge accumulated by generations of women. By 14, Marjorie will be ready for her own family. You are already thinking about her future. It is important to find a good husband from a decent family. Marjorie is obedient, kind. She will make an excellent housewife. Thomas, the youngest, is 3 years old, an energetic little one constantly running around the yard, playing with wooden toys you carved for him last winter. He is curious, asks endless questions, learns something new every day. The future lies open before him. Perhaps he will become a craftsman, or receive land, or find his calling in the city. Your mother, old Mary, lives with you and is a respected family member. She is 60, an impressive age, speaking of her strength and endurance. She is useful in many ways, watches over children while telling them stories of the past, mends clothes, knows hundreds of recipes for healing decoctions and household tricks. Her experience is priceless. She remembers events from 30 years ago, can predict weather by signs, advises in difficult situations. Respect for elders is sacred. They are keepers of wisdom in a world of oral tradition. Interesting fact, the medieval family is smaller than many think. Not huge clans, but a compact core of 5 to 7 people. Grandparents join after widowhood. Adult children create their own families. Marriages are concluded at mature age. Men marry at 20 to 25. Women marry at 16 to 20. Time is needed to save for a household, obtain land. Marriage requires economic readiness. Marriages are arranged by families, but the young have a voice. When it came time to marry, father proposed several candidates. You chose Alice. She is from a respected family, healthy, hard-working, with good dowry. You met several times before the wedding under parents' supervision. Got to know each other, understood you could build a life together. Deep attachment, if it comes, develops over time, through years of joint labors, common goals, and mutual support. The wedding is conducted on the church porch, an ancient tradition. Bride and groom exchange vows before priest and witnesses. You promise to care and protect. She promises to support and help. The priest blesses the union. Then a joyful feast at the bride's parents' house. Bread, roasted chicken, fresh ale, fruit pies. Guests dance to bagpipes, sing traditional songs, wish the young couple happiness and prosperity. By evening, the newlyweds go to their house, a cottage built over summer with neighbors' help. A new chapter of life begins. Raising children is based on patient teaching and skill transmission. Children begin helping from an early age, herding geese in the meadow, gathering kindling for the hearth, carrying water. This is not heavy labor, but gradual entry into the world of adult responsibilities. They are taught prayers, good manners, craft skills. The goal is to raise skilled workers, believing people, responsible community members. The community plays the role of extended family. Neighbors help at important moments. When a house is built, all come to help. When harvest is gathered, they work together. When a family faces difficulties, the community supports. Mutual aid is not just kindness, it is a system of mutual insurance. Today you help, tomorrow they will help you. This tradition binds the village more firmly than any written laws. Conflicts happen, but are resolved through dialogue. A dispute with a neighbor about the boundary of land strips lasted several months. The manorial court heard both sides, studied old records, made a fair decision. Now, boundaries are clear, relations normalized. In a close community, it is important to know how to settle disagreements peacefully. Family and community simultaneously provide support and structure. They support in difficult times, share joy in good days. Yes, there is little privacy. Everyone knows each other's business. But this creates a sense of security. You are not alone. There is always someone who will come to help. In a world without police, without hospitals, without social services, community and family are the only protection. Family values are passed from generation to generation through stories, examples, daily interactions. Respect for elders, care for younger ones, honesty in dealings, keeping one's word, diligence, generosity to those in need. These values are not written in books, they are lived every day.
Mother teaches daughter to cook, father teaches son to plough, grandmother tells grandchildren about the past.
Knowledge is passed like precious inheritance. In the evening, when work is finished, the family gathers by the hearth. Fire burns, casting shadows on walls. Alice mends clothes, you carve a new spoon from wood. Mother tells children an ancient tale of King Arthur and the knights of the Round Table. Children listen breathlessly. Thomas falls asleep on your lap. These are moments of peace when you can forget difficulties and simply be together. Family is not only work and duties, it is also warmth, protection, a place where you are understood and accepted. Here is a paradox. The life of a peasant family is hard, but not devoid of joys. A child's birth, a baby's first steps, the first successful loaf baked by daughter, the first furrow ploughed by son. These small victories fill life with meaning. Family gives purpose. You work not only for yourself, but for those you love, for children who will continue your work, for grandchildren you may see. Marriages in the 14th century are pragmatic unions, but within them real attachment grows. You and Alice have gone through 10 harvests, 10 winters, joys and trials together. Learn to read each other's moods without words, work in unison, support in difficult times. This is not romantic love from nightly ballads. This is something deeper and more reliable. This is partnership tempered by years of joint life. Children are the continuation of the line, the link between past and future. You teach them what your father taught you. They will pass this knowledge to their children. Thus traditions are preserved, thus the community survives. Each generation adds something of its own, but the foundation remains unchanged.
Land, family, faith, labor. 4 pillars of peasant life that have held the world for centuries and will hold it for long to come.
Saturday is market day in the nearest town. Once a week, the village transforms into a hive of activity. Peasants load carts, gather goods, prepare for the 5-mile journey along dirt roads. The market is not simply a place of trade, it is a window to the wider world, a meeting place, source of news and entertainment. Here the peasant becomes a merchant, and village products turn into jingling coins. You go to market with John, leading a cart pulled by an ox. In the wagon are household surpluses, 2 sacks of barley, a basket of eggs from Alice, a piece of butter wrapped in clean cloth, a bundle of onions from the garden, a dozen chickens. This is the result of a week's labor transformed into goods. Each egg, each onion has value, every penny counts. Trading for a peasant is not entertainment, but a necessity of survival. The road to town passes through hills and valleys. You meet other peasants from neighboring farms, all heading to the same place. The road becomes a caravan of carts, pedestrians, cattle drivers, conversations about weather, harvest, prices. Someone shares rumors about war in France, another tells of a new tax. Information spreads slowly in a world without newspapers. The market is one channel of communication between villages. The town appears around the bend, several hundred houses surrounded by a wooden wall, a church tower rising above the roofs. Scents hang in the air, smoke from hearths, manure, fresh bread from the bakery, beer from the tavern, sounds, barking dogs, lowing cattle, merchants' cries, hammer strikes from the smithy. The town wakes early on market day. All prepare for the influx of village visitors. The market square is located at the town centre, surrounded by merchants and craftsmen's houses. By 8 in the morning, the square fills with traders. Everyone knows their place. Tradition assigns certain areas to families. You lay out goods on a wooden counter you rent from the town for 2 pennies a day. The rental fee goes to the town treasury for maintaining pavements, walls, market scales. Customers are townspeople and peasants from surrounding villages. Townspeople need fresh products, grain, meat, vegetables, eggs. They do not produce food but buy it from peasants. Peasants seek goods they cannot make at home: iron tools, salt, fabrics, ceramic dishes. The market is a place of exchange between town and country, each side offering what the other needs. Trade is conducted in English with French word inclusions, legacy of the Norman conquest. Prices are discussed, bargained, sometimes disputed. A buyer wants a dozen eggs for 3 pennies, you ask for 4. You settle on 3.5, a compromise satisfying both sides. Trading is an art of persuasion, knowing characters, ability to find common ground. Honesty is important. Reputation is built over years, destroyed in a day. Money in circulation consists of silver pennies coined by the Royal Mint. 1 penny is a day labourer's daily wage, a significant sum for a peasant. Large purchases are measured in shillings. 12 pennies make a shilling. Even larger is the pound, 20 shillings. Gold coins are rare, seen only by wealthy merchants. Most transactions are conducted in silver, small deals by barter. But not everything is bought with money. Barter is widespread, especially among peasants. You exchange a sack of barley for an iron sickle from the blacksmith. Alice trades butter for clay pots from the potter. You exchange a basket of eggs for a piece of fabric for John's new shirt. Barter is convenient. No need for money, which is always scarce, while goods are valued fairly by mutual agreement. Here is what is interesting. Prices fluctuate depending on season and harvest. In spring, grain is expensive. Stores are running out. New harvest is far off. In autumn, it is cheap. Barns are full. Meat becomes cheaper in November when livestock is slaughtered for winter, more expensive by spring. Eggs are rare in winter, abundant in summer. Traders know these cycles, buy cheaply in seasons of abundance, sell dearly during periods of scarcity. Merchants are a special caste of traders. They are neither peasants nor craftsmen, but professionals of trade. They travel between cities, know prices everywhere, can count, read, write. They have capital, connections, information. They buy goods wholesale, transport over long distances, sell retail with markup. They take risks. Roads can be challenging, goods may spoil, prices fall. But profits are large for the skilled. Robert the merchant is one such trader. He is from a local family, but rose above peasant status through trade. He owns 3 carts, a house in town, a shop on the market square. He buys wool from peasants throughout the county, takes it to Flanders where it becomes fabric, returns with Flemish textiles, sells them in England at high prices. In a year he earns more than a peasant does in a lifetime. Wealth brings influence. He was elected to the town council. Guilds controlled trade in cities. Each craft has its guild: bakers, butchers, weavers, cobblers, blacksmiths. The guild sets prices, controls quality, protects members from competition. To trade in town, one must be a guild member or pay special duties. Peasants are allowed to sell only their own products: grain, meat, eggs, vegetables. Processed goods are a monopoly of town craftsmen. Fairs are special events held several times a year. These are enlarged-scale markets where traders from distant places gather. The fair in a neighboring county lasts a week, attracts thousands of people. Here one can buy exotic goods, spices from distant lands, silk, jewelry, books, works of art. Fairs are festivals of trade where money flows like rivers and usual rules relax. At the fair, you saw foreign wonders for the first time. A Venetian merchant sold pepper, tiny black grains more expensive than silver. A pinch of pepper costs a day's wage, but the taste is incredible, sharp, aromatic, transforming simple meat into delicacy. The wealthy buy spices to show status. The poor make do with local herbs: thyme, mint, onions. Wool is the foundation of 14th century English economy. English sheep produce the best wool in Europe. Long, soft, strong. Flemish weavers are willing to pay high prices for English wool. The king receives enormous revenues from export duties on wool. Wars are financed with wool money. Peasants raise sheep not only for meat but for wool. It brings stable income. You sell wool from 10 sheep to a local merchant for 2 shillings, a good price. The merchant collects wool from 100 peasants, forms large lots, sells to wholesale traders. They take wool to ports: London, Boston, King's Lynn. From there, ships deliver it to Flanders, to the cities of Bruges, Ghent, Ypres. Flemish masters spin, weave, dye fabrics, sell them throughout Europe. Your sheep's wool might become an Italian merchant's cloak or a French lady's dress. Trade routes connect English villages to the wider world. Roads lead to ports, ports to sea, sea to distant lands. Along these paths travel not only goods but ideas, news, fashions, technologies. The Crusades brought Eastern spices to Europe. War in France creates demand for English wool for soldiers' clothing. Plague changed prices on everything. Labor became more expensive, land cheaper. Money earned at market is spent carefully. You buy only necessities: salt for preserving meat, a pound for 4 pennies. An iron nail for plough repair, a penny each. A piece of soap for washing, 2 pennies. Some linen fabric for a new shirt, a shilling per yard. Each purchase is considered, weighed. There is no excess money. Every penny counts. The tavern is a place of rest after trading. For a penny you buy a mug of ale, sit at a common table with other peasants. You discuss prices, weather, news. Someone tells of a new wool tax, another of crop failure in a neighbouring county. The tavern is a club for men, a place of information exchange. Alice buys bread at the bakery, chats with town women about children, recipes, gossip. By midday, trading ends. Goods are sold, purchases made, time to return home. You load the cart with purchases, bid farewell to town acquaintances. The road home seems shorter. The cart is lighter, pockets heavier with coins. John counts earned money, 8 shillings and 4 pennies. Good trading, enough for a week, some left for winter needs. The market teaches peasants mathematics without schools. You calculate mentally. A dozen eggs for 3 pennies means each egg costs a quarter penny. A sack of grain weighs 2 bushels, sells for a shilling, so a bushel costs 6 pence. Simple arithmetic, but necessary for trade. Those who calculate better trade more successfully. Here is a paradox. The market simultaneously unites and divides people.
Unites, all come to trade, communicate, exchange news.
Divides, the wealthy buy expensive goods, the poor settle for cheap ones. A merchant in silk doublet and peasant in rough tunic. Bargain on the same square but live in different worlds. Trade changes the world slowly but inevitably. Money gives independence to those who know how to earn it. Successful peasants buy more land, climb the social ladder. Merchants grow rich, influence politics. Cities grow, attracting people from villages. The old feudal order cracks under pressure of monetary relations. The future belongs to those who understand the power of trade. King Edward III has ruled England for 43 years. He ascended the throne as a boy in 1327. Now he is 63. Deep old age for the 14th century. You have never seen him and never will, but his decisions affect your life more than weather. The king declares wars, introduces taxes, issues laws. His power is absolute in theory, limited by barons in practice. For a peasant, the king is a distant, almost mythical figure, but a real force determining how much grain remains after paying taxes. Edward became famous for military victories. The 100 Years' War with France began in 1337 and continues to this day. The Battle of Crécy in 1346, the Siege of Calais, victory at Poitiers. These names are known even in villages. English archers became legend, their longbows pierce French armor. Peasants are proud of the king's victories, though they pay for them heavily. War costs enormous money. Money comes from taxes. Here is a paradox. War enriches some and ruins others. Archers are recruited from peasants. Army service provides wages, loot, a chance for social advancement. Some return wealthy with French gold and land grants. Others do not return at all. But those who stayed home pay war tax, poll tax, wool tax, duties. Last autumn, collectors came to the village, demanded 4 pennies from each adult. For your family, this is an enormous sum you had to borrow. The Black Prince is the king's eldest son, heir to the throne. His real name is Edward, but the nickname Black stuck because of the dark armor he wears in battle. He is 40 years old, has spent half his life in wars. A great commander, fierce warrior, generous to friends and merciless to enemies. Peasants know of him from tales of soldiers returned from war. They say at the siege of a French city he personally led the assault. His sword knew no mercy. But he also founded schools, monasteries, cared for war veterans. Queen Philippa of Hainaut, Edward's wife, died 2 years ago. She is remembered as a kind ruler, an advocate for common people. When the inhabitants of Calais surrendered after a long siege, the king ordered them punished. The queen knelt, begging for mercy. The king yielded to her. The story reached villages, strengthened love for the queen. Women in the village speak of her with respect, a rare case when the powerful show compassion. John of Gaunt is the king's 3rd son, Duke of Lancaster, one of the richest men in England. He is 30 years old, owns vast lands, dozens of castles, thousands of peasants. His power is almost royal. After the Black Prince's decline, who is ill and weak, John effectively governs the kingdom. His name evokes mixed feelings, respect for strength and power, but also discontent with high taxes and harsh laws. The Black Death, plague that came in 1348, changed England more than any king. In 2 years, the epidemic took 1/3 of the population. Entire villages emptied, fields grew wild, churches remained without priests. Your parents survived the plague, rarely and reluctantly talk about those times. Memories are too heavy. But consequences are visible to this day. Empty houses in the village, abandoned lands, shortage of working hands. Here is what is interesting. After plague, the peasants' position improved in a paradoxical way. People became fewer, but land remained the same. Working hands became more valuable. Lords began competing for peasants, offering better conditions, reducing labor service. Some switched from natural obligations to money rent. Peasants felt their labor was valuable. But the king and barons tried to stop these changes. The Statute of Labourers, passed in 1351, tried to freeze wages at pre-plague levels. The law forbade peasants from demanding more money, lords from paying above established rates. Punishment for violation, fines and prison. But the law did not work. How to force a peasant to stay if a neighbour offers twice as much?
Economics is stronger than laws.
The statute bred discontent. People saw injustice. John Wycliffe is an Oxford theologian, professor, philosopher. He is 60 years old, lives at university, writes treatises in Latin, translates the Bible into English. His ideas are radical. The church should be poor. Priests should not own lands. Every Christian can appeal to God directly without intermediaries. The Pope condemned his teaching, but Wycliffe is under John of Gaunt's protection. His ideas spread, especially among townspeople and literate craftsmen. In villages, little is said of Wycliffe. His books are in Latin, his disputes far from daily concerns. But wandering preachers, Wycliffe's followers, sometimes appear in market squares. They speak plain language about how all are equal before God, that church wealth contradicts Christ's teaching. Priests hate these preachers, but peasants listen with interest. Seeds of new ideas are sown, will sprout in a generation. William Langland is a poet, author of the poem Piers Plowman, written in English. The poem tells of a simple peasant seeking truth and righteousness. Langland criticizes church corruption, greed of the wealthy, injustice to the poor. The poem is popular among literate townspeople, read aloud in taverns. You heard excerpts at the fair. A wandering minstrel declaimed lines. Words were memorable. When Adam delved and Eve span, who was then the gentleman? A simple but profound question. This phrase will become the slogan of a great uprising in 11 years. In 1381, peasants of eastern counties will rise against new taxes. Tens of thousands of people with scythes and axes will march on London, demanding abolition of serfdom. The rebellion's leader will be Wat Tyler, a simple roofer who became a revolutionary. The king will meet with the rebels, promise reforms. Then Tyler will be killed. The uprising suppressed, promises forgotten. But something will change forever. You do not know of the future uprising, but feel tension in the air. Conversations in the tavern grow bolder. Peasants openly criticize high taxes, unjust laws, church wealth. The priest warns against grumbling, but his words sound less convincing. The old order is cracking, the new not yet born. You live in transitional times, though you do not realize it. Local lords are closer and more comprehensible than the distant king. Sir Richard de Clare is your immediate lord, a baron owning 20 manors. He rarely appears in the village, management is entrusted to the bailiff, but at Christmas he comes, holds a feast, receives dues, judges important matters. You have seen him 3 times. A tall man about 50, in expensive clothing, on a fine horse, carries himself with dignity but without cruelty. A fair lord by the standards of the time, does not raise dues without need, commits no lawlessness. The local bishop is another power, ecclesiastical. His residence is at the cathedral 20 miles away. He appoints priests, collects church taxes, judges spiritual matters. The bishop is wealthy, owns lands, receives income from 100 parishes, lives like a baron surrounded by servants and luxury. Critics say he has forgotten Christ's poverty. Defenders respond, the church must be strong to defend the faith. Technological and economic changes occur slowly but steadily. Windmills spread, easing grain milling. New breeds of sheep give more wool. Improved ploughs allow working heavier soils. Trade expands, money becomes more important than barter. Cities grow, attracting peasants with promises of freedom and opportunities. Here is a paradox. You live in one of the most dynamic epochs of the Middle Ages, though changes are barely noticeable within one lifetime. Your grandfather lived almost the same as you. Your grandson may see a different world, a world where serfdom weakens, where money means more than birth, where new ideas challenge old orders. But for now you plough the same fields, pray to the same God, live by the same laws as your ancestors. The influence of great people on your life is contradictory. The king is distant, but his wars require taxes. The prince is glorious, but his generalship does not feed your family. Philosophers debate, but their ideas do not help plough. The bishop is powerful, but his wealth is built on tithes. You respect authority, obey laws, but deep down feel the system is unjust. Those who work least own most. Those who labor by the sweat of their brow barely make ends meet. But you are not a revolutionary. You are a practical person caring about family, harvest, survival. Great events, wars, politics, church disputes seem distant from your fields. Your world is measured in miles around the village, years of harvests, births and weddings. History is made somewhere out there by kings and barons. You simply live as your ancestors lived, as descendants will live, or so you think. The mill stands on the river, half a mile from the village. This is the most complex structure you have seen in your life. A large wooden wheel 20 feet in diameter slowly rotates under water pressure. The wheel is connected to a system of wooden gears that transmit movement to stone millstones inside the building. Two huge round stones, each weighing a ton, rub against each other, grinding grain into flour. The technology is ancient. Romans used water mills 1,000 years ago, but for a 14th century peasant, this is a marvel of engineering thought. Without the mill village, life is impossible. To grind grain by hand for a family for a week would take a whole day of exhausting work. The mill does this in an hour. Time savings are colossal. You bring 2 sacks of barley, a week's supply for the family. The miller weighs the grain on large scales, records the quantity with sticks on a wooden board. In an hour, you receive flour. But not all. The miller takes 1/10 as payment. This is the milling due legalized by centuries. Here is what is interesting. The mill belongs to the lord of the manor. The monopoly is absolute. Peasants are forbidden to grind grain at home with hand mills. Violators are fined, millstones confiscated. The system benefits the lord. Milling dues bring stable income. But peasants grumble. Why must we give 1/10 for using what was built with our money and hands? The mill was erected by the whole village. The lord merely gave permission and took it as property. The miller is a key figure in the village. His name is Thomas. He is 45. He is neither peasant nor lord, but something in between. The profession passes by inheritance. His father was a miller. His son is learning the trade. The miller must understand mechanics, how to adjust millstones so flour is the right fineness, how to repair a broken gear, how to direct water for maximum efficiency. This requires knowledge, experience, ingenuity. The miller is literate, can count, record debts, read documents. His status is above peasant, but below knightly. In areas without rivers, windmills appear, an innovation of the last 2 centuries. You saw one on a hill in a neighboring county, a tall wooden tower with 4 huge wings rotating from wind. The construction is even more complex than a watermill. The entire tower can turn so wings catch wind from the right direction. The engineering solution is impressive. though the principle is the same, convert natural force into mechanical motion. The smithy is another technological heart of the village. The blacksmith is master of fire and metal. His name is John Smith, a hereditary nickname that became a surname. The smithy is an open structure with a large forge, a furnace where coal heats to temperatures melting iron, bellows operated by foot blowfire to needed heat. When iron glows red hot, becomes soft, the smith takes it with tongs, places on anvil, strikes with hammer, giving shape. From formless pieces of iron, the smith creates tools without which peasant life is impossible. Ploughshares, sharp iron tips cutting into earth, sickles for reaping, curved blades catching stalks, axes, knives, nails, horseshoes, door hinges, locks. Each item forged by hand, unique. The process requires strength, precision, understanding of metal. Overheat, iron burns, underheat will not yield to forging. Iron in the 14th century is expensive and valuable, extracted from bog ore, rock, containing iron oxides found in swamps and streams. Ore is smelted in primitive furnaces producing blooms, lumps of spongy iron mixed with slag. The smith reforges blooms, hammering out slag, compacting metal. Iron quality is average by modern standards, contains impurities, is brittle, but for its time quite suitable. An iron tool serves decades with proper care. Here is a paradox. Iron smelting technology has been known for thousands of years, but production remains limited. The process is labor-intensive, requires much fuel, charcoal. Forests are cut down to obtain coal, creating ecological problems. In some parts of England, forests are already depleted. Timber must be brought from afar. The Industrial Revolution in 5 centuries will solve this problem with coke and coal, but for now, iron remains scarce. Weaving is another important technology. Every peasant family engages in spinning and weaving at home. The process begins with sheep shearing in spring. Wool is dirty, greasy, smells of sheep.
Alice washes it in the river, dries in sun.
Then cards it, passes through wooden combs with iron teeth, untangling fibers, aligning them. The result is fluffy mass ready for spinning. The spinning wheel is a simple but ingenious tool. A large wooden wheel rotates from foot movement on a pedal. The wheel through a belt rotates the spindle, a thin rod on which thread winds. Alice pulls wool from the distaff, twists with fingers. The spindle winds, producing strong thread. The process is meditative, monotonous, requires hours of work. From one sheep's wool comes enough yarn for one tunic. A family needs wool from 10 sheep per year. The loom turns yarn into fabric. The simplest version is a horizontal loom, a wooden frame on which warp threads are stretched. Alice passes a shuttle with weft thread between warp threads, creating interlacing. After each pass, she presses threads with a reed, a wooden comb. Slowly, row by row, cloth grows. In a day's work, a yard of fabric is produced, 3 feet. A shirt requires 3 yards, meaning 3 days of weaving. English woolen fabric is coarse but durable.
Undyed natural grey-brown colour.
Dyes are expensive, bought only for festive clothing. Local plants provide limited palette. Woad gives blue, madder, red, onion skins, yellow. Imported dyes, indigo, cochineal, cost like gold, available only to the wealthy. The Flemish have elevated weaving to art. Their fabrics are fine, soft, brightly coloured, valued throughout Europe. The secret is in technology, better looms, special fulling techniques, professional dyers. Flemish cities, Bruges, Ghent, became wealthy through textiles. England supplies raw material, wool. Flanders produces finished product, earning on added value. English kings try to develop their own textile production, inviting Flemish masters, but success so far is modest. Building technologies are also impressive. The church in your village is a stone building constructed 100 years ago. Stone was hauled from a quarry 15 miles away. Enormous effort. Masons cut blocks, fitted them without cement, only on lime mortar, created arches, vaults supporting the roof. Knowledge of geometry, physics, architecture was applied intuitively, without written textbooks. Masters learned through practice, passed secrets to apprentices. Gothic style begins penetrating from France. Pointed arches, tall windows, stone lacework. Great cathedrals in cities demonstrate technology's possibilities. Buildings 100 feet high, supported by buttresses, illuminated by colored stained glass. Cathedral construction takes decades, requires thousands of workers, enormous money. But the result impresses. Stone prayer rising to heaven. Peasant houses are built differently. Wood, wattle, clay. Technology is simple but effective. Wooden frame of oak beams creates structure. Gaps are filled with woven twigs, hazel or willow branches interlaced between vertical posts, then plastered with clay mixed with manure and straw, producing durable, heat-insulating wall. Roof of thatch or reed. House is built in 2 weeks by family and neighbors' efforts. Agricultural innovations change production. Heavy plough with iron moldboard is key technology. Old Roman light ploughs scratched surface. New one turns soil, buries weeds, improves aeration. Requires 8 oxen, but works land deeper and more efficiently. 3-field crop rotation system increased production 50% compared to 2-field. New animal breeds improve productivity. Sheep breeding led to appearance of long wool breeds.
Cows give more milk.
Horses become larger, stronger. Horse harness develops, allowing use of horses for ploughing. Horse is faster than ox, though requires better feed. Here is what is remarkable. Most technologies are transmitted orally without written instructions. Smith teaches son by observing and showing. Miller explains mechanics in practice. Mason takes apprentice who learns for years. Knowledge is stored in masters' heads, in their hands, in experience. When master dies, part of knowledge is lost if there was no worthy student. Innovations occur slowly by trial and error. Someone tries new plough shape, proves successful, neighbors copy. Smith accidentally discovers that adding certain ore makes iron stronger. Knowledge spreads. There is no scientific method, no theory, only practice, observation, intuition. 14th century technologies may seem primitive by modern standards, but they work. Feed millions of people, create civilization's infrastructure, allow society to function. Mills, smithies, looms, ploughs. These are economy's foundation. Without these technologies, there would be no cities, trade, culture. Ancestors' engineering solutions deserve respect. They did maximum with available materials and knowledge, creating remarkably efficient systems. In 600 years, your village will disappear from the face of the earth. Houses will collapse, trees will grow through ruins, earth will cover everything with grass. But traces will remain in soil, in stones, in objects buried and forgotten. In the 20th century, archaeologists will come here with spades, brushes, notebooks. They will excavate the past, reconstruct your life from fragments. What for you is routine, for them will become a window into a vanished world. Medieval deserted villages are a whole category of archaeological monuments. Hundreds of such places are scattered across England. Hills with barely visible house outlines, ditches of former roads, stone church foundations. Villages were abandoned for various reasons. Plague decimated population, Lords converted arable land to sheep pastures. Economic changes made some settlements unprofitable. Earth swallowed villages but preserved their memory. 20th century archaeologists used technologies that would seem magic to you. Aerial photography reveals outlines of vanished structures. Differences in grass growth show where walls and ditches were. Geophysical methods scan ground without excavation, detecting buried structures. Radiocarbon dating determines age of organic finds with decade precision. DNA analysis reveals what people ate, what diseases they suffered, where their ancestors came from. Excavation of your village begins with survey. Archaeologists study old maps, documents, mentions in medieval records. Find manorial documents, court protocols, property inventories, tax statements. In these papers flickers your village's name, peasants' names, sizes of land holdings. Documents provide history's skeleton, excavations add flesh. First trenches reveal house outlines. Archaeologists find post holes, dark round spots in yellow clay where oak frame beams stood. By hole placement they reconstruct layout, rectangular structure 20 by 15 feet, one entrance from south side. This is your house, recognizable after centuries. Walls did not survive. Wattle and clay decomposed, but foundation tells its story. The hearth leaves clear trace. Section of baked earth in house center, surrounded by ash and coal layer. Archaeologists take ash samples, analyze, determine which wood species were burned. Oak, ash, hazel. Discover plant pollen grains showing what crops grew around. Even ash carries information. Refuse pits are true treasures for archaeologists. Behind houses they find deep pits filled with waste, broken pottery, animal bones, iron fragments, lost tools. What you discarded without thought becomes key to understanding your life. Bones are analyzed. Species of animals eaten are determined. Many sheep and pig bones, little beef. Cows were kept for milk, only old ones slaughtered. Bird bones, chickens, geese, sometimes ducks. Fish bones are rare. Village far from sea. Pottery tells of trade. Most shards are local production, crude clayware fired at low temperature. But fragments of imported pottery from France, Germany appear, evidence of trade connections. Even a remote village was part of European economic network. Iron objects preserve poorly, rust, crumble, but sometimes found nails, knife fragments, horseshoe, arrowhead. Each find is fixed on plan, photographed, sent for conservation. Metallurgists study iron composition, determine forging technology. Compare with modern samples, are surprised by quality. Medieval smiths knew their craft. Coins are rare finds. Peasants had little money, rarely lost it. But sometimes archaeologists find silver pennies stuck between floor stones. Coin dated by king's image and inscription. Edward III, minting 1360. Tiny piece of silver becomes precise time marker. Skeletons in church cemetery reveal dramatic life details. Anthropologists study bones, determine sex, age, height, diseases. Average male height is 5 feet 6 inches, female 5 feet 2 inches, lower than modern people, result of limited childhood nutrition. Teeth worn, ground to gums, result of eating bread with stone dust from millstones. Spinal arthritis in all over 40, consequences of heavy physical labor. Here is what is remarkable. Isotope analysis of bones reveals diet. Ratio of carbon and nitrogen isotopes shows that grain formed diet basis. Wheat, barley, oats. Little animal protein, meat rare. Tooth enamel analysis shows where person grew up. Oxygen isotopes vary by region. Most born here, but several skeletons show migration from other parts of England. DNA analysis, 21st century technology, opens even more. Extract ancient DNA from teeth and bones, sequence, compare with modern populations, determine origin, mixture of Anglo-Saxon, Scandinavian, Norman lines, reflection of migration waves that rolled through England, discover genes responsible for hair color, eyes, blood type. Abstract medieval peasant acquires concrete features, brown hair, brown eyes, blood type. O-pollen analysis reconstructs landscape, takes soil samples from different layers, extract microscopic plant pollen grains. Pollen preserves thousands of years. Each plant produces characteristic pollen. Compile diagram which plants grew in different periods. In your era, grain pollen dominates open fields. Little tree pollen forests cleared. After village abandonment, forest returns. Oak, ash, hazel pollen increases. Archaeobotanists study charred grains found in hearths and pits. Wheat, barley, oats, peas, beans, main crops you grew. Weed seeds show what problems peasants fought. Cornflower, poppy, corncockle. Find apple pips, berry seeds, dietary supplements. Written sources complement archaeology. Domesday, Book of 1086, England census conducted by William the Conqueror, contains entry about your village, land for 12 ploughs, 20 villeins, a mill. 14th century manorial court records survived fragmentarily but contain peasant names, disputes, fines. One protocol mentions William, possibly you. Comparison of archaeological data with documents creates complete picture. Documents say 20 villeins. Excavations find 25 houses. Discrepancy explained. Not all houses simultaneous, some abandoned and rebuilt. Documents name field sizes 300 acres. Geophysical survey confirms arable land strips cover exactly this area, visible as lines in soil. Artifact preservation depends on conditions. In dry soil, organics decompose, no leather, fabric, wood remains. But metal, pottery, stone, bone preserve. In boggy places where oxygen is scarce, amazing things are found. Leather shoes, wooden tools, even fabric fragments. These finds are rare but priceless, show what usually disappears without trace. Experimental archaeology recreates technologies. Modern enthusiasts build medieval houses from found plans using authentic methods. Weave fabric on reconstructed looms, forge iron in recreated furnaces, plough with replicated ploughs. Experiments show medieval technologies more efficient than seemed. Plough pulled by 8 oxen ploughs acre per day, exactly as described in documents. Museums create exhibitions based on excavations. 21st century visitors walk among reconstructed cottages, see tools, dishes, clothing recreated from finds. Your routine becomes history, subject of study, source of admiration. People of the future look at your life, try to understand how you survived, worked, found joy in simple things. Here is a paradox. You live not thinking you will become history. Work, eat, sleep, bear children, cycle, natural and eternal. Cannot imagine that in centuries, scientists will study your bones, measure your house, analyze your food. For you, this is simply life. For them, precious window into past, puzzle solved piece by piece. Archaeology transforms nameless peasants into real people. Not abstractions from textbooks, but living men and women with concrete faces, problems, hopes. Each found bowl, each bone, each grain of wheat, testimony of someone's life. Your labor, your cares, your love for family will not disappear without trace. They will be preserved in earth, in records, in humanity's memory. You are part of history, link in chain of generations stretching from past to future. Imagine for a moment, a person from the 21st century arrives in your village. For them, this would be like traveling to another planet. Absence of electricity, plumbing, medicine, communication, everything the modern world considers basic needs. But what is surprising, you do not feel deprivation because you know no alternative. Your life is complete within its framework, as their life is complete within theirs. Two worlds separated by 6 centuries but united by basic human needs: food, shelter, family, meaning. The technological gap between the 14th and 21st centuries is abyssal. You plough land with wooden plough pulled by oxen. In the future, tractors with internal combustion engines will plough the same field in an hour. You reap grain with sickle by hand, 3 weeks of intense labor for the whole village.
Future combine harvesters will manage in a day.
You grind grain at watermill. Electric mills will grind tons per hour. Every action requiring hours or days from you will shrink to minutes in the future. Medicine will change beyond recognition. Cold that you treat with herbal decoctions and prayers will pass in a week in the future with medicine help or simply rest. Infections that can now become fatal will be cured by antibiotics in days. Surgery unthinkable in your time due to pain and infections will become routine procedure with anesthesia and sterile conditions. Average life expectancy will double, then triple. People of the future will live to 80 as norm. Information and communication will transform absolutely. You learn news from mouths of wandering monks and traders with delay of weeks or months. In the future, information will spread instantly worldwide through invisible networks. People will carry in pockets devices connecting them to all human knowledge. Books now rare and available only to priests will become ubiquitous. Literacy from privilege will turn into norm. Mobility will change radically. You lived entire life within 10-mile radius of birthplace. Sea 40 miles away seems distant edge of world. In future, people will cross these distances in minutes by automobiles, fly between continents in hours on airplanes. World will shrink, borders blur. Person from England can breakfast in London, lunch in Paris, dine in Rome, all in one day. Life comfort will improve immeasurably. Your house is one room with earthen floor, without windows, without furniture. In future, houses will be multi-room with electric lighting, central heating, hot water from tap. No need to chop wood, carry water from well, sleep on straw. Refrigerators will keep food fresh for months. Washing machines will wash clothes in an hour without effort. Every aspect of daily life will become easier. Nutrition will become more varied and abundant. You eat bread, porridge, vegetables, meat on Sundays. Diet is monotonous but sufficient for survival. In future, supermarkets will offer thousands of products from around the world. Tropical fruits in winter, fresh fish far from sea, spices from Asia, chocolate from America. Food will cease being survival concern, become source of pleasure and variety. Paradoxically, with abundance will come new problems: overeating, diseases from excess. Freedom and rights will transform deeply. You are villain serf, tied to land.
Cannot leave without permission. Your children inherit your status.
In future, serfdom will disappear. Declarations will proclaim equality of all people. Democracy will give voice to everyone. Women will receive rights equal to men. Children will cease being workers, receive right to education and childhood. Social mobility will become reality. Birth will not determine fate. But what will remain unchanged?
Human nature.
Need for love, family, community. Desire for meaning and purpose. Fears and hopes. You love your wife and children as deeply as people will 6 centuries hence. Worry about future, rejoice in simple pleasures, seek justice, dream of better life. Emotions have not changed, only context. Work will remain central part of life, though its character transforms. You work physically dawn to dusk in fields. In future, many will work mentally in offices before computer screens. Workday will shorten to 8 hours, but intensity will not decrease. Instead of physical fatigue will come psychological stress. People will complain of stress, burnout, lack of work-life balance, problems incomprehensible to you but real to them. Community bonds will weaken. Your village is tight community where everyone knows everyone, where mutual aid is not choice but necessity. In future, people will live in huge cities among millions, not knowing neighbors' names. Individualism will replace collectivism. Freedom to be oneself will appear, but also loneliness amid crowds. People will seek community in clubs, online groups, social movements, trying to recreate what is natural to you. Attitude toward nature will change dramatically. You live with nature, depend on it absolutely. Rain or drought determines your survival. Change of seasons dictates life rhythm. Nature is not scenery but partner, sometimes generous, sometimes cruel. In future, most people will live in cities, disconnected from land. Food will come from supermarkets, its origin forgotten. Nature will become place of rest, tourism, but this distancing will create ecological problems, pollution, climate change, species extinction. People of future will begin relearning to respect nature. Religion will change role but not disappear. Church now is center of your life, moral authority, source of meaning. In future, church influence will weaken. Science will explain much now attributed to God. Diversity of beliefs and unbelief will appear. People can choose spiritual path or reject it, but spiritual need will remain. People will seek meaning in philosophy, art, helping others, personal development. Questions why
and what for are eternal. Education will transform absolutely.
You are illiterate like 90% of population. Knowledge passes orally through observation practice. In future, education will become universal and mandatory. Children will study in schools 10, 12, 16 years. Universities will open doors not only to priests but all capable. Reading and writing will become basic skills. Internet will make all human knowledge available to everyone. But paradoxically, information abundance will create new problem: how to distinguish truth from lies. War will not disappear but change beyond recognition. You know of 100 Years' War, knights, archers, castle sieges. In future, wars will become mechanized, industrial. Weapons will become so destructive they can destroy entire cities in seconds, all humanity in hours. Paradox: technological progress will make war simultaneously more effective and more undesirable. Fear of mutual destruction will create peace periods longer than any in history. Family will remain most important unit, but its structure will transform. Your family is patriarchal, multi-generational, economically necessary. In future, families will become smaller, parents and children without grandparents. Marriages will be based on love, not economic expediency. Divorces will become possible. Women will work equally with men. But basic need for family, for closeness, for continuation of line will remain unchanged. What can modern world learn from you? Resilience in face of difficulties. You survive in conditions people of future would consider unbearable, but do not complain, do not give up.
Value of simple.
You make do with little. Find joy in basic things: warm hearth, filling supper, healthy children. Community spirit. You know survival depends on mutual aid. Do not try to manage alone. What could you learn from modern world?
Medicine that would save your children's lives.
Technologies that would ease heavy labor.
Education that would open new horizons.
rights that would give freedom and dignity. But accepting these benefits, you would lose something intangible: connection with Earth, with nature's cycles, with simplicity of existence. Here is deep truth. No era is perfect. Each has its gifts and problems. Your time is harsh but comprehensible. Future is comfortable but complex. Progress solves old problems, creating new ones. Technologies give freedom but take simplicity. Abundance brings choice but also anxiety of choice. Connection of times is not broken. You are ancestor of future people, biologically and culturally. Your genes flow in their veins. Your labor created world they inherited.
Fields you ploughed still feed people.
Church you built still stands. Traditions you kept evolved but did not disappear. You are not forgotten. Archaeologists study your traces, historians reconstruct your life, writers tell your stories. In 6 centuries, someone will listen to story about you, trying to understand how you lived, what you dreamed, what you felt. And perhaps in 6 centuries after 21st, someone will look at our time as we look at yours, with surprise, compassion, respect.
Wheel of time turns.
Eras come and go, but humanity continues, carries within memory of all who lived before it, hopes of all who come after. You are part of this continuous chain, link between past and future, witness of your time and foundation of times to come.